patient conservatively at least 90 days. Conservative treatment includes increasing ambulation, elevation of the legs, and the wearing of compression stockings. It's very common for folks to come see us in March or April wanting to have their veins fixed before they go into swimsuits starting in June. When we see someone in March or April, they're going to require at least 90 days of conservative treatment before we can even go to the insurance carrier to get permission to treat their veins. So if you think you have a venous problem, now is the time to come in and get a free screening so we can determine whether or not you need something evaluated. If you have a vein problem or you think you may have a vein problem, now's the time to contact us at bestveincarehuntsville.com.
The Blitz has been called. Welcome to the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared.
It is time to share your decision. Where are you headed to school?
Ooh, Alabama gets the #1 safety in the country. What was it about Alabama?
LSU Tigers, #1. Go Tigers.
And the next 4 years, I'm going to Stanford University.
Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977. Now, here's D Squared.
Welcome everyone to this Tuesday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I am D Squared, Drew DeArmond. I want to thank you for joining us once again as we're going to have an hour of recruiting conversation and outstanding sports talk. We're going to have Rodney Orr on of TiderInsider.com in about 25 minutes. He's going to join us to talk Alabama Crimson Tide football. A lot of news because of the coordinator hires for Nick Saban in the last week or so. As we know, Tommy Rees leaving Notre Dame to become the quarterback coach and OC at Alabama, as he is now leaving his alma mater, Notre Dame, where he has been the last 6 seasons. 3 as quarterbacks coach, 3 as OC QB coach, and now going to take the same role. Only at 30 years of age for the University of Alabama, but an old soul, a guy that's I think always been a coach on the field during his career at Notre Dame, which was he faced some adversity. It was a little up and down. He had some times where he was benched. He had some times where he was banged up and he lost the job, but he always was reliable, always seemed to bail Notre Dame out, and did a really good job under Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly brought him on as a coach. Shortly after his NFL career, was done, and he had a cup of coffee in the National Football League. Then spent a year as a graduate assistant under Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern, and went on to work for the then San Diego, now Los Angeles Chargers for a year before coming to Notre Dame as an on-field coach, first with quarterbacks and then taking over OC duties. Brian Kelly wanted to bring him to LSU, but that didn't happen as Tommy Rees decided he wanted to stay at his alma mater. Worked for Marcus Freeman, who was, of course, went from defensive coordinator to head coach, but now he has made the decision to come to Tuscaloosa and work for Nick Saban, and like so many OCs before him, have a chance to move up in the coaching ladder quickly, as get a shot as a very young, one of the youngest coaches in the country. He could be the youngest head football coach in the country. But Nick Saban has made a couple of those hires in this offseason, very interesting ones. The 30-year-old Tommy Rees is QB and OC, and then it has yet to be announced what his official role is. I think he's going to work with either the inside or outside linebackers, but Austin Armstrong, and as you know, we have talked about Austin Armstrong extensively on this recruiting show, as we had, we had a Southern Miss beat writer on with us that did a great job giving us the background on Austin Armstrong and what kind of coach he is. Not even 30 years old. He was the youngest defensive coordinator in all of Division I football the last couple of years under Will Hall. He helped Southern Mississippi improved exponentially in his 2 years there. Now he has come on as a defensive assistant at Alabama, hoping to provide some energy and enthusiasm. And really, Alabama needs a higher level of coaching than they've had the last couple of years defensively, especially this past year. It was not good fundamentally. Alabama was not good. I know Pete Golding, is left to go to Ole Miss and is being very well paid by certainly Lane Kiffin, and he did a solid job. But overall, I think there was too much adjusting that had to happen. Alabama was not physical enough at the point of attack. I don't think Alabama should be done tweaking their defensive staff, because I think Coleman Hutzler, the special teams coach and outside linebackers coach, needs to go. If he does return, I think his only responsibility should be special teams. I don't think he'll be involved in the linebacker coaching, nor should he. And then Freddie Roach, who I've been critical of, great player out of Killen, a great high school athlete, played for great friend Bob Godsey, a heck of a guy. He did a good job in 2 stints as an off-field coach for Nick Saban, but he's not an on-the-field football coach. He's not a very good defensive line coach. He doesn't develop defensive linemen very well, and his recruiting acumen is extremely overrated. And so I think Bo Davis needs to be brought back from Texas. He needs to be paid very well, and he needs to bring that dog mentality back to the Alabama defensive line, because it has been missing, and I think that was the biggest weakness for Alabama this year. Everybody talks about the linebacker play. I just did. They've talked about the secondary play, but guess what? Those 2 areas improve when your D-line wins battles up front and when they are creating a new line of scrimmage, and they're not. They have not been good enough. I don't think Freddie Roach developed Fedarian Mathis. I don't give him that credit. I know Fedarian had, last 2, really good seasons in 20 and 21. I think he was developed, by others before Freddie Roach got there. And I think he was also a very self-motivated guy who worked very hard on his own. But I think he was very disruptive and very good. But I'm not going to give Freddie Roach the credit for developing Fedarian Mathis. I just think when you look at it overall, and I know Craig Kuliagowski in 18 wasn't a great fit either, and that was during Fedarian's early years. I just think overall I give more credit to Fedarian himself than and maybe even some of the analysts like Todd Grantham, who was there this year, and some of the analysts they've had in years past that work with these kids during practice. But again, I just think, I'm not going to give Freddie Roach the credit for developing Fedarian Mathis. Some are. I think it was mostly Fedarian doing a lot of work on his own, and I think he was a self-motivated guy, and I think he learned from those in front of him, and I think he did a very solid job. Just like I'm not going to give the 1 year that Christian Barmore worked, with Freddie Roach. I'm not going to give Freddie Roach Barmore either, because I think if a guy like Bo Davis was at Alabama, Fedarian Mathis goes in round 1, and so does Christian Barmore. Both those guys, I think, are going to have very productive NFL careers. Both got hurt this past year. But again, I just think the defensive line coaching is a detriment to Alabama football right now, and hopefully Nick Saban is going to fix that, because I think it's the most important area that needs to be fixed so far. I know he wanted to get the right OC. In his mind, he feels like he did with Tommy Rees. He's gone back to the future, very solid hire with Kevin Steele, who will get Alabama back to fundamental play. I think Armstrong's a good fit. I like T-Rob even potentially taking over the secondary, very good recruiter as well. But I think when you look at Coleman Hutzler and Freddie Roach, those are the other 2 moves that need to be made. Alabama seems to have put together a very solid offensive staff. Most all these guys, Eric Wolford's going into his 2nd year. Holman Wiggins been there since 19. I think he's solid. Joe Cox going into his 2nd year as the tight ends coach. Robert Gillespie, I believe, going into year 3 at running backs. I think they're all solid. And Tommy Rees at QB and OC. I think they've got a very solid offensive staff, but they need to continue to make some changes on the defensive side of the ball, because to me, Alabama, that's where they were the most deficient this year. I know that there was a lot of criticism of Bill O'Brien and his play calling, in the red zone, but I don't think that was the biggest issue. The biggest issue was defensively. Alabama was not sound fundamentally. They did not rush the passer well enough. I thought the play of the outside linebackers fell off, and the middle linebackers. I don't think the linebacker coaching was good enough. Don't think the coaching was good enough on the D line, and then I think it affected the secondary too. Though I would have been happy with Charles Kelly coming back because of the job he and T-Rob did recruiting. I thought they did a solid enough job coaching. I just think when the front seven's not functioning properly, it can make the secondary look bad. And I thought, though, some of those guys back there had solid years. Kool-Aid McKinstry, I felt like, was an All-American this year at that cornerback slot. I thought he played really well. I thought Brian Branch was a first-round draft choice. He did exceptionally well. I thought Battle was solid. Malachi Moore was a little bit, hot and cold, but we'll see how he does as a senior. No question about it, as he was in that 6 DB package. And then I thought, DeMarco Helms had the bad game against Tennessee, but he's a solid football player. And again, if you're rushing the passer a little bit better and you're sounder with gap control and your blitz packages, then perhaps Hendon Hooker's on the ground some and not throwing to a wide open Jalen Hyatt. So again, I just think the Alabama defensive staff needs to continue to be gutted. And to me, the only coach that deserves to come back now that Charles Kelly has moved on to work for Coach Prime is of course, secondary, the safeties coach and the DC. Then I think really Travarius Robinson should be the only one that Nick Saban ultimately brings back. We'll see if that happens. We will find out, overall how that is handled, though. In the coming days, I think the next week is really big for this coaching staff and what Nick Saban decides to do. So we'll certainly be monitoring that here on the Recruiting Blitz, and we'll certainly continue to monitor that also on our sister station on Talking Ball. Scott Tyson and I just had a great show. We just talked to Chris Lee of Southeastern14.com, talked some SEC basketball because it's a big slate. It's big for Alabama this week because they tomorrow host the Florida Gators. Florida under the radar under Todd Graham, Todd Golden. I knew I'd do that. Todd Golden, the first-year head basketball coach there, taking over from San Francisco. Colin Castleton, one of the best bigs in the Southeastern Conference. Also, no question about that. And I think, they've got some solid perimeter players. Myrion Jones, who's played for Steve Ward at Huffman, transferred from Penn State. He's a really good shooter. They've played much better basketball as of late, so that's going to be a tough challenge for Alabama. And then the Iron Bowl of basketball coming up this weekend, 1 o'clock. College game day is going to be there. It's going to be a raucous environment. Alabama trying to get another road win at a very difficult place to play in Auburn, where they've won, I believe, 28 out of 29. Their only loss this year, they got whipped by Buzz Williams and Texas A&M, but they have a chance tonight to get some revenge as they will go on the road to College Station, will Auburn, and they lost a heartbreaker to Tennessee this past weekend, 46-43, and they are going to look to bounce back, no question about that. So we will see. We are going to continue to monitor SEC basketball. Auburn solidly in the field right now. Joe Lunardi, I think, had them as a 7 or 8, and Alabama a 1 seed. Alabama, if they end up getting their first 1 seed ever in school history, I would say 95% they're going to end up in Birmingham the first 2 rounds, and that would be really awesome for Alabama. They'd have a great, home advantage, home crowd for the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. Should they win the round of 64 game and then go ahead and play in the round of 32, so that would be a great boon for Alabama basketball, who is 10-0, and then trying to go to 11-0, I think, for the first time in school history, if they can do that against the Florida Gators. But if you want to give us a call, 256-576-4977 on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. You can join the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared right now, but we are talking a little Alabama and Auburn, as Auburn, of course, as we know, under Bruce Pearl, 17-6. They are still in the solidly in 3rd place within the SEC, solidly into the NCAA tournament. But the thing with Auburn is they have as difficult a schedule as anyone in the SEC the second half of the season and really the final 8 games. And so, here's the way you look at it, though. If Auburn can get wins, they're going to do nothing but move up the ladder because really, except for Ole Miss and that road trip to Vanderbilt, all the other 6 games are against opponents where you're going to enhance your resume. The SEC is a little down, but it's still up top, a really good league, the top 5 or 6, 7 teams, and Auburn will play all of them, and so they have a chance to really enhance their seeding. Alabama certainly is in the NCAA tournament. They have a chance to have a historic season. They're 20-3 right now and 10-0 in the SEC. So we'll see how they react on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock against Florida, and if they can keep that up and get to 11-0 and 21-3 before going on that trip to Auburn and Neville Arena. And then after that, Alabama has a tough stretch. They still have to go to Tennessee next Wednesday to Thompson-Boling Arena. That could be for the SEC regular season championship too. Alabama's got a 2-game lead, but that can evaporate quickly when you have Florida, Auburn, and Tennessee, the last two on the road. So a much more difficult schedule within the conference for Alabama, and we'll continue to follow that as well. But certainly we're going to talk to Rodney Orr in just a few minutes of TiderInsider.com. We're going to talk about these moves for the Crimson Tide with their coaching staff and what this means. Could there be more on the way? And recruiting right now, Alabama, we didn't really talk about it on Talking Ball this morning, but we can on this show because that recruiting is the topic. Alabama did lose one of their 2024 commitments, no doubt about that. Martavius Collins, the tight end from Rome, Georgia, but I think Alabama's moving on from him. He's never really been solidly committed. I think when he committed last year, he was already the next day thinking about Clemson. I don't think, that he was ever what you would consider a strong commitment. He's certainly a talented young man at tight end and play some D-line at Rome. He's going to be a Power 5 signee, but good luck to him in the future. But he has decommitted from Alabama. I wanted to give a shout-out to New Hope High School and their ladies. They got a big area tournament win last night, and they have a very special student athlete and player on their team. She has been a stalwart really since she was in middle school, starting for them. Kaylee Yarborough, she had 36 in the first half last night, 43 for the game. She was done with about 3.5 minutes left in the third quarter in their big area tournament win. 10 threes for that young lady. She's going to be almost certainly a Division I signee. She's may go down as the greatest player in New Hope history, but the New Hope ladies under Craig McGill. Craig has been a part of Talking Ball in the past, and we've enjoyed speaking with him. Those New Hope ladies have played a very challenging schedule, and they are, I believe, hosting the area tournament. Got a chance to go on a run and try to get to the Final Four, which I believe they did last year. They want to win a state championship under Coach McGill, who had a lot of success in the state of Tennessee. But Kaylee Yarborough, what a great talent she is, with many years left in her storied career. But I believe she's a sophomore, but she's got a chance to be a very special player. Already is, really, and what a job she has done for the New Hope Lady Indians, and she scored 43 points last night, no doubt about it. So Kaylee is a very good player, no doubt about it. And again, she has had a lot of big time, scoring games lately as the games get bigger, because we are having area play start this week, throughout the state, both the ladies tournaments and the men. The Huntsville High 7A Area 7 tournament hosted by Huntsville, who went 6-0, a perfect 6-0 in the regular season. That will start tomorrow, and that will start at 6 o'clock as the Huntsville Crimson Panthers will take the floor against the Albertville Aggies, and that will be a big game. These are the games you have to win. You win or go home. So Huntsville High is going to be trying to beat Albertville for a third straight time, and then it's going to be a huge game after that at 7:30. The Sparkman Senators, the two-time defending Huntsville City Classic champions, they're going to be taking on the Grissom Tigers. The Grissom Tigers with 10-time state championship coach Jack Doss, and they also have the return of R.J. Johnson to the lineup. He was back in the lineup in their 43-41 senior night loss to Bob Jones the other night. He will be on the court for Grissom as they try to beat Sparkman for a third straight time. It's very difficult to do, even though Sparkman beat Grissom 3 out of 4 times last year, and then Huntsville beat Sparkman 3 out of 4. But it's tough to beat a really good team 3 times, and Grissom's going to be trying to do that. And for the first time under Jack Doss in year 4, year 3. Let me correct myself. Coach Doss, this is his 3rd year at Grissom, but they're going to be trying to get out of the area tournament for the first time in the careers of Izzy Miles, who's had a great run as a senior, and R.J. Johnson, who's back on the floor. Those guys have been starters since they were freshmen, and so Justin McCall's had a great year for them. D.J. Thompson, the transfer from May Jemison, his first full season with Grissom. He played last year as well for the majority of the season, but right now the Grissom Tigers trying to get a rematch potentially if both of them win with Huntsville Crimson Panthers. Huntsville, as we said, went 6-0 in 7A Area 7, so they had a great run, no doubt about that. But we're going to, and the Huntsville Lady Panthers tonight, they will be at Sparkman for that area tournament. Sparkman will take on Albertville in the first game, and then the Huntsville Lady Panthers and Coach Jeff Smith will take on the Grissom Tigers. Grissom just recently beating Huntsville 56-52 over at Huntsville, so that was a huge win for the Grissom Lady Tigers, and they will be trying to beat Huntsville for the second time in really about a week and a half, and they're going to try to beat the Crimson Lady Panthers tonight and knock them out. But the winners of these games tonight will move on to the finals at Sparkman later this week, the area finals, and you will be moving on to Jacksonville State to the round of Sweet 16 because there's no sub-regional round. There's sub-regionals from 1 through 6A, but there is not in 7A basketball. But we're going to go on a break here on the Recruiting Blitz. But before we do, don't forget to download our app. Don't forget to download the Blitz Sports Radio app at your Google Store, your Apple Store. Please do that because later this afternoon, you're going to have the Bandyman, Bailey Lowry, Captain Cool, John Abraham. They're going to bring you quality sports talk on the afternoon Blitz from 2 to 4. And then please download our sister station, 97.7 The Zone. Going to be home to UAH basketball this week, as UAH is going to have a huge game with West Georgia tomorrow. And we're going to talk to Coach John Schulman on Talking Ball. And then at the Alabama Crimson Tide, you'll be able to hear UAH on Zone 2, Alabama Crimson Tide at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock with the pregame on our main feed on 97.7 The Zone. And then this weekend, the Iron Bowl of basketball with ESPN's College Game Day with Alabama traveling to Auburn. So please download both those apps. But we're going to go on a break when we come back. Rodney Orr of TiderInsider.com set to join us on this edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio.
With us today, Dr. Tracy Lowry of Best Vein Care of Huntsville.
When we evaluate a patient and they indeed have significant venous disease, most third-party payers, private insurance, Medicare, require us to treat every patient conservatively at least 90 days. Conservative treatment includes increasing ambulation, elevation of the legs, and the wearing of compression stockings. It's very common for folks to come see us in March or April wanting to have their veins fixed before they go into swimsuits starting in June. When we see someone in March or April, they're going to require at least 90 days of conservative treatment before we can even go to the insurance carrier to get permission to treat their veins. So if you think you have a venous problem, now is the time to come in and get a free screening so we can determine whether or not you need something evaluated. If you have a vein problem or you think you may have a vein problem, now's the time to contact us at bestveincarehuntsville.com.
I'm attorney Gary Lackey. You know, you'll hear people say we're like a family, but here at the Lackey Law Firm, that's really true, not just a saying.
I'm Justin Lackey. With my father and my sister, we have a special connection to each other.
I'm Jennifer Lackey. At the Lackey Law Firm, when we take on your case, you become part of our family. You really do.
And we'll always do whatever it takes to get everything you deserve.
If you're injured, you worry about getting well, not about paperwork or insurance companies or figuring out how to get to your lawyer's office. I'll come to you.
We worry about your case so you don't have to.
When you've been injured, we know that your case is probably the biggest thing going on in your life. More important than almost anything else.
And it's important to us too, for one simple reason. Family takes care of each other, and at the Lackey Law Firm, we'll take care of you.
The Lackey Law Firm. The Lackey Law Family. 1-800-4RIGHTS.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
The tech show's on this month. You know, I was thinking of looking at home security systems.
Oh, cool. I'll go with you. We're looking for more home security ideas, too. That's why I called Budget Blinds.
Budget Blinds?
Look at this.
A remote for the blinds.
Yep, motorized.
Okay, well, that's beyond cool. I love it. But what does it have to do with home security?
Oh, they also come with a timer. The blinds and drapes open themselves in the morning, close in the evening.
Oh, so it looks like somebody's home even when you're not.
Exactly, and I saved a bunch of money. Sally saved a bunch of money.
Ha, but you'll take the credit.
Yeah.
My brother, the tech genius.
Thanks, man.
Now give me that remote.
Budget Blinds motorized window coverings are the ultimate in luxury, and during the Luxury Within Reach event, they're even more affordable. The more you buy, the more you save, with savings up to $2,000. Hurry and call 855-BUDGET-BLINDS now before this offer ends, or go online to budgetblinds.com. Don't miss out. Call 855-BUDGET-BLINDS now. Offer good on select products at participating independently owned and operated franchises. Restrictions may apply. Ask for details.
Renowned sports artist Daniel A. Moore has teamed with master sculptor David Grieco to create Finish, the first in a line of limited edition bronzes. See the artist's work on Finish now at newlifeart.com. Finish captures Kenyon Drake's dive into the end zone after his 95-yard kickoff return in the 2016 National Championship game. Available in 3 sizes with the artist and Kenyon Drake signatures cast into each piece. Precasting prices are available at newlifeart.com. Hurry, this offer won't last long.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I am D-Squared, Drew DeArmond. We appreciate you for joining us on this Tuesday. We always appreciate you listening and tuning in on our streaming channel. We've been going strong since late July, and we're going to continue to grow here on the Blitz Sports Radio and, of course, our sister station, ESPN 97.7 The Zone. Scott Tyson and I bring you Talking Ball, 7 to 9 a.m., and then Monday through Friday, you switch over to the Blitz, and you hear me from 9 to 10 a.m., 3 straight hours of quality sports talk radio. And we got one of our favorites now on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. He's a very busy man. He's finishing his first book as he's covered the Alabama Crimson Tide since 1996. It's an honor to contribute to TiderInsider.com, which I think is the first and foremost, the most accurate source for information concerning the University of Alabama and the Alabama Crimson Tide, especially football and recruiting, but basketball as well. I certainly help out with that. But our next guest is one of the good friends in the business, one of the great guys, and Rodney Orr of TiderInsider.com has taken a few minutes to join us on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Rodney, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Drew. Good morning. How are you?
We're doing well, and I know it's been very lively over at TiderInsider.com, Rodney. It's never boring when you're covering Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. Nick Saban, hard to believe, going into year 17 now, coming off year 16, a rare miss in the college football playoffs, 11-2. At most places, that would be a cause for celebration, winning the Sugar Bowl and having maybe the first 2 picks in the draft in Will Anderson and certainly Bryce Young. But a lot of unhappiness, a lot of consternation because Alabama had a lot of expectations going into this year. Many thought they could win Nick Saban's 8th national championship and 7th in Tuscaloosa. It did not happen. So as we have for 16 consecutive years now, we've seen some changes in the coaching staff. For the first time since his inaugural season in 2007, we're seeing both coordinators change, and that has happened within the last week and a half. I know you've been tracking it very closely on TiderInsider.com. I will start with the offensive coordinator position. Your thoughts on, first of all, the departure of Bill O'Brien and the interesting hire of Tommy Rees by Nick Saban?
Well, I think, first of all, and we've talked on your show previously about this, it was no surprise that Bill O'Brien was likely to go back to the NFL after 2 years. I think that was kind of the plan he had, and I don't think it surprised anyone, especially Nick Saban. So, with that said, I think that the hiring of Tommy Rees is, from all indications, Drew, I haven't really watched Notre Dame that closely the last few years, but I know that Tommy Rees is a guy that Brian Kelly really had a lot of certainly felt like that Tommy Rees had a lot of potential, elevated him from a quarterbacking coach role to offensive coordinator. I think it was in 2020. He did a really good job there, given the circumstances that they had. So I think Tommy Rees is a young, up-and-coming play caller, a guy that, Drew, one thing that really catches my attention about him is that he's noted as a guy who is a tremendous play designer, kind of like Steve Sarkisian. So, I think looks like a very interesting hire.
Yeah, and I know there's been a lot of talk about his age, Rodney. He's only 30 years old. It's going to be interesting. He's only been in coaching at Notre Dame for 6 years. 3 as the quarterback's coach, 3 as the OC play caller and QB coach. But I do think it's interesting. To me, if he's the QB coach first and foremost, he's a quarterback developer. And that is key because I think that's what Steve Sarkisian was in his time at Alabama, Rodney. And at this time in Alabama football, with Bryce Young moving on after his storied career, winning a Heisman Trophy, quarterbacking this Alabama team to another strong season at 11-2, and perhaps being the first or the second pick in the draft, development is key with Ty Simpson, who's very talented. Certainly with Jalen Milroe, who you've talked about ad nauseum on this show with his physical tools. You even got Eli Holstein and Dylan Lonergan. So getting someone that's not just a play caller, because I consider Lane Kiffin more of a play caller than a quarterback whisperer, but getting someone with a quarterback background in development I think was big.
Absolutely. I mean, when you have young guys like they have, I think certainly having a guy like Tommy Rees, he's a young guy who I think it relates extremely well to these kids. I think, he's a guy that just a few years ago, he was a quarterback on this level himself at Notre Dame.
That's right.
So I think he can really relate well to these guys, and I think certainly he's got a nice track record of development. Now, he had some injuries there at Notre Dame with his quarterbacks, and, yeah, I think that hurt the numbers that they had and put him in some difficult situations. But, listen, I think I'm really interested in watching, Tommy Rees as we move into spring practice and how this offense kind of starts to develop and how these young quarterbacks progress.
Yeah, and that's going to be key. That's what I want to see the most. I'm anticipating the quarterback battle being between Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe. I would be surprised if it's decided in the spring. I think it'll be decided in the fall, and so I would think that Nick Saban and Tommy Rees will want to keep those two guys in the program through then. I know the transfer portal situation is interesting because the windows, the last window is going to be in May, so after spring, convincing one of the two that they're still in the race and there's not a definitive leader is going to be key. Because I know both of them want to start. I think that's why Lonergan and Eli Holstein were signed, because eventually the guy that loses this job is probably going to move on. But I would anticipate this battle going on into the fall. Would you think, Rodney?
Following Nick Saban's history, you would say yes. I mean, it's probably he won't tip his hand. It would not surprise me, Drew, if we don't know who the starter is until that Monday before the season opener. I mean, that's just kind of the way Nick Saban's always done it. We've seen in 2016 when I remember he came in that Monday and announced that it was between Cooper Bateman and Blake Barnett, and then Jalen Hurts came in the second series of that opener against USC and quarterbacked the rest of the season. So, again, I think it's going to be interesting to watch. You mentioned the two young players, Eli Holstein and Dylan Lonergan, the two true freshmen. I don't think they could be coming in a better situation, because if they want to compete early, they're going to be competing against two older guys in Milroe and Ty Simpson that really don't have a ton of experience themselves. So they're not like they're on a totally different level in that regard. So it's going to be real interesting watching all four of these guys in the spring.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting, too, is the intel we seem to get is Nick Saban was more concerned with the offense and getting it fixed immediately following the season, because he knew Bill O'Brien was going to depart. In your mind, how do you, when you've explained that to your subscribers and coming on this show explaining it to the listeners, I don't think that means that he's satisfied defensively with where they are. But I think I took it to mean that he knew what he wanted to do defensively and was trying to get and was vetting a lot of guys for the OC spot. But he had a smaller pool of who he was talking to defensively and who he thought he could bring in that he was very familiar with and trusted. But that he wanted to get in his mind, the right fit at OC. Is that a better way to explain it, or what is your take on it?
No, I think you explained it well. I mean, I think that there was some mention that I've picked up, you've picked up, others have, that, Nick Saban felt like the offense was in more need of attention, if you want to put it that way, in terms of maybe changing some things a little bit, getting back to closer to what they did maybe in 2020, the style of offense they played, and, being able to have a lot of balance and being able to run the ball effectively. I think that's the key. You could do that in 2020. The last two seasons, especially this past season, they really struggled in that regard. So I think, becoming more physical up front, offensively, in the trenches, being able to run when you want to or when you need to in those short yardage situations, I think that's something that they really want to become more consistent at. But also, Drew, there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, yeah, we're going to go back to this this offensive style that maybe we saw many years ago, and I don't see that. I do think that the importance is still there. The priority is still there to be able to have quarterbacks who can execute in the passing game, be able to utilize big playmakers on the outside, being able to throw the football consistently, and have, like I said, kind of balance, an offense similar to what you saw maybe in 2020.
Yeah, and then also what we saw the last part of the season on the second half from the Ole Miss game forward. I don't think Bill O'Brien's getting enough credit for how much the offense improved down the stretch, Rodney, and especially with their balance in the running game getting better. Of course, that probably coincided with Jace McClellan getting healthier, because we know how much Saban likes Jace McClellan. But it also means, too, that you want to take advantage of your strengths, and it's going to tie in with recruiting right now. But certainly, even though we know Jahmyr Gibbs has moved on to the NFL, it's still going to be and Trey Sanders has moved on to TCU. A very, very deep running back room, though, when you have Jace McClellan back, you have Roydell Williams, Jamarian Miller, who we are all impressed with, and then two outstanding signees, maybe the top two backs in America, in Justice Haynes and Richard Young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's a great room. I think this is Jace McClellan's opportunity. I love Jace when he came out of Aledo, Texas. The guy's a winner. He won state championships there in high school, a really prominent program. He's had some injuries here. I think last year, towards the end of the year, as you mentioned, especially maybe around the Ole Miss game in the second half, when he started kind of showing some things about what he can do in terms of running the ball with physicality, making some key runs. He's a guy that brings some speed and elusiveness, too. He's a tremendous receiver out of the backfield. I think this is going to be Jace McClellan here. I really, really do. You mentioned Roydell Williams, certainly been around. Jamarian Miller is a very, very promising young player, I think. He's got a lot of ability. I thought the comparison somebody made in the Sugar Bowl that to Josh Jacobs was a good comparison. And you talked about the two young players. I think Justice Haynes is a guy that's going to be a really, really special player. He's already here. Richard Young, I think, obviously has a lot of ability too. So yeah, it's a good room. I think the offensive line's going to be better, in my opinion. I think in year two, Eric Wolford's group is going to be more acclimated to what he's teaching. I think they've got some really good young players that they can plug in. Just a matter of development. I look forward to seeing how they progress.
And then, of course, when you look at it, wide receiver, some were disappointed with that group this year. Certainly didn't have the big play capability that we saw from 17 through 20, even to 21, until injuries derailed Jamo and John Mechie. But I think they showed some improvement, and there's already some promising intel coming out of the fall practices and the bowl practices with Malik Benson, the junior college transfer. Yeah, I mean, I think the wide receiver core, I expect them to be better. The experience a lot of those guys got this year, Kendrick Law, Isaiah Bond, obviously a very explosive player. Kobe Prentice looked good in the bowl game, made a tremendous play. You just saw him getting better and better. You mentioned Malik Benson, the junior college transfer coming in. They had some other guys they signed in this class, Cole Adams, Jalen Hale, Jaron Hamilton, all those guys really quality athletes, guys that I think, certainly, bring a lot of tools.
And they have some other guys there in the wide receiver room. So they don't have a shortage of options for sure. And I really liked over those last 30 days of practice between the Auburn game and the bowl game how much progress some of the young receivers showed. So, again, I think it's a good group and look forward to seeing how they all kind of come together with these quarterbacks in the spring.
Just a couple more questions offensively. What is the intel you're getting about C.J. Dupree, the transfer from Maryland? I know they lost Cam Latu, who I thought developed nicely over his career. I know he wasn't the best blocker, but he still, I thought, showed marked improvement every season, and I think he's going to play in the NFL at tight end. But Dupree played on a Maryland team. Coach Loxley won 8 games. I know he didn't play in the bowl game, but he had over 300 yards receiving. I know he and Talia Tungo-Vailoa seemed to have a good connection. It seems as though the plan with him was they felt like they needed an experienced 3-down tight end for next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he can really help in a lot of different ways you mentioned there. And I think as a receiver, he's got athletic, he's big, he's got a big body. He plays with physicality. And what I mean by that, he uses his frame. He uses his body, positions himself well. He can get down the field, use that body to shield defenders off and, catch the football. He seems to catch the ball with consistency from what I've seen on the tape. Very athletic guy. So I think he can become a really valuable weapon in that regard. And I think it's going to be really interesting, a player I'm going to keep my eye on. And first of all, Robbie Oates, he made a big contribution in that Auburn game.
He did.
I think he can be a sneaky little weapon. I think he can continue to do that. And I think, too, the guy that I really want to see this year, this spring especially, and hopefully he starts to emerge, is Amari Niblack. Just think he's a very, very talented guy. He's got great size in terms of, that he's kind of a tweener a little bit, maybe, 6'4", 220 pounds, whatever he is. He's not an inline tight end. But he's a guy that could be a big receiver. I just really am interested to see how Amari Niblack kind of progresses, because I think he has a chance to be a really, really valuable weapon.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. He's one of these guys that's kind of been forgotten about because everybody's focused on the newcomers, but as a second year in the program, he's got a chance to make a huge leap. Extremely talented student athlete. And Rodney, finally, offensively, the offensive line, they've got a chance to be better at tackle, especially, and I know this was a story you followed in the process very closely, if Caden Proctor can make a quick adjustment to college football coming out of high school.
Well, I think he can, and I think part of it, too, is his versatility. I think he can play inside. I think he can play outside. And we've seen Nick Saban start young players, whether it's Jonah Williams on the right side at right tackle before moving to left tackle, Alex Leatherwood playing guard and tackle, playing both sides of the line, right and left. And then we've seen others. Evan Neal started at left guard as a true freshman, then went to right tackle, then went to left tackle. So I think Caden Proctor kind of brings that versatility, where he can start at a position early, perhaps, and move to a different position as his career moves along. But really excited about Caden Proctor. I think he's a guy that would not surprise me if he's in the starting 5 very early. I think, too, as we're talking about young players, for down the road, and I'm not sure exactly if it's this year, but maybe the next year, I really think Wilkin Formby, the local kid, is going to be a guy to watch from Tuscaloosa Northridge, because, number one, he's incredible size. I mean, he's 6'7", 3/4, probably, and 320, 325, somewhere in there. Guy that's just scratching the potential that he has. So Wilkin Formby's another guy that I think down the line is going to be someone to watch. He's got the right mindset. He's really mature for his age. He wants it. He's a hard worker. Look forward to seeing his development as well. And all the other guys that they signed, Drew, they signed a really, really, I think, good class of offensive linemen.
No doubt. Olasa, Leanan, Ruckwez, McKeldry. They signed some outstanding players, no doubt about it, and Miles McVay, too, who I think is underrated. But to quickly go to defense, I think we expected this. It was kind of that he would bring an old head back and go back to the future. Certainly Jeremy Pruitt was a big topic of conversation, but there's a lot of things going on around him, NCAA-wise, and with this investigation at Tennessee. But he brings in Kevin Steele. A lot of positive reaction from former players and people around the program about this.
Well, I like Kevin Steele. I think it's a great hire, and I'll tell you why. Number one is he's a veteran coach who understands Nick Saban's system completely. He's worked with Nick Saban before. He's been very successful in the SEC. I thought he did an incredible job at Auburn. He's a guy that I really like the intensity that he brings, the fire that he brings, the expectations that he brings. And I'm talking about not only of the players, but of the coaches on that defensive staff. I think he's going to be really demanding. And I think that's something that Alabama needs. I don't think you're going to have any off-the-field distractions with Kevin Steele. It's all going to be football. I really like that aspect of it. I just think Alabama has to get back defensively to doing the basics in an excellent way and excelling in those things. I mean, tackling, I think he's going to have a defense that tackles with physicality, with consistency, with technique, all of those things. I just think he's a good, sound defensive football coach, and I think it's a good hire at this time.
And I think he would be really good to help kind of mentor Austin Armstrong, the other young. I would think he and Kevin Steele would take over that linebacker core, who we saw the linebacker core kind of take some steps back this year, Rodney, the defensive line as well. The front seven needs to be improved coaching-wise.
I think, the consistency there with the linebackers you're talking about is something that really lacked this year. I thought, honestly, to be frank with you, I really feel like Sal Sinceri going off the field hurt them a little bit on the outside. I think Sal did a tremendous job. I don't know exactly how they would split up this linebacker core now. I'm guessing either, if I had to guess, I know that Armstrong is coached inside. I know that Kevin Steele is coached inside, and it seems like that's where Nick Saban wants his defensive coordinators, on the inside. Perhaps Armstrong coaches outside. Don't know what's going to happen with Coleman Hutzler, who coached the outside backers this year. I think they obviously have to get more consistent up front defensively on the defensive line, the development of those players. They've got a lot of really good young players, I think, that are very capable of being good players. I just think they have to play with consistency, the technique, and all of those things. And so, we'll see what happens there. But I agree with you. I think it all starts up front, and they need to be much better there. And it's going to also be interesting to see who Nick Saban brings in, or how they, fill that safety spot as a coach, an assistant coach. So that's going to be really interesting too, and just kind of going to see how that unfolds.
Because it seems as though, and you can correct me if you've heard otherwise. You're as well connected as anyone. I don't think he's done on the defensive side yet.
Well, I think it's interesting because you look at Hutzler. Obviously, they've got to figure out how they're going to place these coaches there in terms of the linebackers. Could it possibly be that your defensive coordinator is what they call a walk-around coach and goes from position to position? Somebody mentioned that, but I don't know. I think he'll probably coach linebackers, what I think Kevin Steele will do. And again, you got to find a safeties coach. And then I guess the big question up front defensively on the defensive line is, does D'Amico Ryans offer Freddie Roach a position? And would Freddie Roach take that position with the Houston Texans? Because there's been a lot of talk that, those guys were teammates. They played next to each other at Alabama on the inside at linebacker, that, D'Amico would probably offer Freddie a position on his staff in Houston. Frankly, I think it'd be a really good move for Freddie Roach to go to the Houston Texans or go to the NFL if he gets that opportunity. Because, I think it gives him some more diversity, some more learning experiences as a defensive line coach. Maybe if, he wanted to move around and diversify a little bit, it would be a good move for him. And it would open the door and I'm speaking from the Alabama fans' perspective, you know this, Drew, they're clamoring for the return of Bo Davis. And I don't think there's any question Bo Davis is considered by many as to be the number one, the premier defensive line coach in America. He did an incredible job here at Alabama. Not only did he coach those players up extremely well, had a lot of respect for him, the players did, and he recruited extremely well. He's a great evaluator, a tremendous developer of talent. So, I mean, if that happened, that a spot opened, I'm not saying that Bo Davis would be the guy, but I do think that he would be someone that, if that spot opened, to keep an eye on.
Well, great stuff from Rodney Orr, TighterInsider.com. He's very busy trying to finish up an outstanding book that he's been working on during his that will chronicle his just not just his time as with TighterInsider.com, but certainly his time growing up and what led him to on his journey now to his dream of covering the University of Alabama. It's a lot of life lessons. It's going to be a great memoir, but we're looking forward to that. I know he's finishing that up, but we appreciate him for taking some time this morning to talk Alabama football with us. Rodney, please let everybody know how to connect with you.
I appreciate it, Drew. It's TighterInsider.com. It's only $48 a year, and you can get instant access with your credit card if you prefer. There is an address there to send a check. Gives you all our premium information. And I'm telling you, our All Sports Forum, if you haven't been on there, our community of Alabama fans, that's where the exchange is constant. I'm on there a lot, Drew, sharing with the members and a lot of opinions, a lot of inside information there on our All Sports Forum. I think it's the best community there is on the internet, TighterInsider.com.
Well, thank you, Rodney. Have a great rest of your morning. We look forward to speaking with you again soon, and we always appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it, Drew. Take care.
That's Rodney Orr. We're going to go on a break and wrap up this Tuesday edition of the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared when we come back.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs: residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing, we have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates. Residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. Check us out at FlemingHSV.com. FlemingHSV.com. When you need a quick response, it's Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
Do you have discomfort in your legs? Varicose veins can affect not only how your legs look, but how they feel. Symptoms of varicose veins include pain, swelling, aching, heaviness, and fatigue. Dr. Tracy Lowry of Best Vein Care of Huntsville can diagnose and treat your varicose veins with the latest minimally invasive techniques. Diagnosis and treatment is covered by most insurances. Call 256-715-7151 to schedule your free screening. Go to bestveincarehuntsville.com. Do you have discomfort in your legs? Varicose veins can affect not only how your legs look, but how they feel. Symptoms of varicose veins include pain, swelling, aching, heaviness, and fatigue. Dr. Tracy Lowry of Best Vein Care of Huntsville can diagnose and treat your varicose veins with the latest minimally invasive techniques. Diagnosis and treatment is covered by most insurances. Call 256-715-7151 to schedule your free screening. Go to bestveincarehuntsville.com.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs: residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing, We have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates. Residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. Check us out at FlemingHSV.com. FlemingHSV.com. When you need a quick response, it's Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D Squared, Drew D. Armand. Don't forget, later today, the afternoon Blitz with Captain Cool, and of course, is John Abraham and the Bandyman Bailey Lauer bring you quality sports talk from 2 to 4. Again, that is the afternoon Blitz each and every day here on the Blitz Sports Radio. I, of course, bring you quality recruiting and sports conversation from 9 to 10 a.m. Big thanks to Rodney Orr of TiderInsider.com as he broke down the University of Alabama. Great segment. He's always very generous with his time as we talked a little Alabama football heading into spring practice. The offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, now in place. The defensive coordinator back to the future with Kevin Steele. A lot of conversation and talk about that. Area tournament's going to be continuing to crank up. The ladies tonight in 7A Area 7. The men tomorrow on Wednesday. That'll be another topic of conversation. But again, we appreciate you for tuning in on the Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D Squared, Rudy Armand. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Wednesday at 9 a.m.
This is Wes Neighbors with Philip with Eagle Insulation, and we have an announcement to make.
Yes, Wes, we are now Eagle Masonry and Insulation. Still a place to call for your installation needs, but now we offer masonry services.
What kind of masonry projects can you handle?
Wes, no job is too big, no job is too small. We can do renovations, new construction, outdoor fireplaces, fire pits, brick landscape borders.
Well, when you came out to my house, you did both the insulation and masonry at the same time. You guys did rock for me, you did brick for me, and you insulated my house. That's usually done at the same time that you're building a house.
Absolutely. It really capitalizes on two services you need at the same time, and you can get one company to handle both of those.
Philip with Eagle Insulation will come out, do your installation. He'll do your masonry. They do a great job. They guarantee your work. Check out more online at insulatedwitheagle.com and schedule your free examination today. 256-755-1556.
Thanks, Wes.
With us today, Dr. Tracy Lowry of Best Vein Care of Huntsville.
When we evaluate a patient and they indeed have significant venous disease, most third-party payers, private insurance, Medicare, require us to treat every patient conservatively at least 90 days. Conservative treatment includes increasing ambulation, elevation of the legs, and the wearing of compression stockings. It's very common for folks to come see us in March or April wanting to have their veins fixed before they go into swimsuits starting in June. When we see someone in March or April, they're going to require at least 90 days of conservative treatment before we can even go to the insurance carrier to get permission to treat their veins. So if you think you have a venous problem, now is the time to come in and get a free screening so we can determine whether or not you need something evaluated. If you have a vein problem or you think you may have a vein problem, now's the time to contact us at bestveincarehuntsville.com.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs: residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing, we have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates, residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. Check us out at FlemingHSV.com. FlemingHSV.com. When you need a quick response, it's Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. A day after his trade from Brooklyn to Dallas was finalized, Kyrie Irving set for his first practice with his new team today. Expected to play his first game with the Mavericks against the Clippers tomorrow, 10 Eastern, ESPN TV. Acquiring Irving.
With the reigning king of college football, Chuck Oliver, on Southern Sports Today.
Starting the show with Iowa football. Almost always not good. That'd be today. Chuck Oliver Show on a Tuesday. On a Tuesday in February. Which means it really isn't good. I said almost always not good when we start the show talking Iowa football, certainly in February because there's no games. There's a chance, do you realize there's a chance that if we're talking Iowa football during, like November, then we're talking a surprise. Either the coach got finally fired, and I don't think that'll happen. More about that. But either the coach got fired or they're like 9-0 and knocking on the door and we're like, hey, wait a minute. Do we take Iowa seriously? Hey, how good are they? So at least then there's like a chance. Talking Iowa football in February, certainly start the show. That's not good. And as I said, that'd be today. If you have not seen... Well, let me get, if you have not seen, I'm going to go through all the facts. Let me skip down to the bottom. So Kirk Ferentz somehow embarrassed himself even worse. And the Iowa AD's performance, holy smokes. Okay, I'm going to now fill in the gaps. If you didn't see, a few days ago, Iowa head coach Kirk Ferentz via